Remember that song from 1973 with the whistle intro that you can't get out of your head, but you can't remember who sang it? That's exactly why we're diving into these forgotten gems today. The songs that topped the charts 50 years ago, then seemingly vanished without a trace. What's even crazier is how these 10 forgotten hits from '73 shaped the music we listen to today. From sampling in modern hip-hop to influencing indie rock production techniques, these one-hit wonders left fingerprints all over music history that most people never notice. Number 1. Stuck in the Middle with You, Stealers Wheel. Ever wonder how a song poking fun at Bob Dylan and the music industry became one of cinema's most unforgettable scenes? Stealers. Wheel struck gold in 1973 when Stuck in the Middle with You climbed to number 6 on the Billboard charts. The irony wasn't lost on band members Jerry Rafferty and Joe Egan, who crafted this folk rock satire only to become trapped in the very industry they were mocking. With its instantly recognizable acoustic guitar intro and Dylan-esque vocal styling, the song initially made waves, but quickly faded as the band dissolved shortly after their brief moment in the spotlight. For nearly 2 decades, this catchy tune gathered dust in record collections until Quentin Tarantino forever transformed its cultural significance. Number 2. Dancing in the Moonlight, King Harvest. After the dark juxtaposition of Tarantino's cinematic choices, let's shift to a happier musical influence. Ever notice how a certain distinctive keyboard sound makes you start swaying spontaneously in the grocery store? King Harvest's Dancing in the Moonlight may have only reached number 13 in 1973, but its infectious electric piano riff created a musical template that's been secretly shaping what you listen to for 5 decades. The band couldn't capitalize on their brief success. Their lineup was already disintegrating as their hit climbed the charts. What made this song special wasn't just its feel-good lyrics about carefree dancing. It was that distinctive electric piano sound and those jazz-influenced chord progressions that created something truly timeless with remarkably simple technology. After vanishing from radio for years, Dancing in the Moonlight experienced a renaissance when Gen X filmmakers and advertisers rediscovered its irresistible groove in the 90s. Today, you might recognize it from Guardians of the Galaxy or The Umbrella Academy, proving its enduring cultural relevance. Number 3. Brother Louie, Stories. From carefree dancing under moonlight, we jump to a song that dared to confront America's deepest social taboos. While most pop hits of 1973 offered musical escape, Stories boldly challenged listeners with Brother Louie, a provocative number 1 hit that turned car radios into vehicles for social commentary. This wasn't just another love song, it was a direct confrontation with racial prejudice. The track tells the story of a white man falling in love with a black woman and the fierce opposition they face from both families. What made Brother Louie revolutionary wasn't just its chart success, but its unflinching portrayal of racism during a time when interracial relationships remained highly controversial. Originally written by British band Hot Chocolate, the song found greater success in America than the UK. An interesting twist considering America's complex racial history. Story's cover version spent 2 weeks at number 1, proving American audiences were ready to engage with uncomfortable truths through popular music. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great. Thank you so much. Now back to the video. Number 4, My Maria, B.W. Stevenson. While social boundaries were being challenged, B.W. Stevenson was busy breaking musical ones instead. In 1973, his hit My Maria climbed to number 9 on Billboard by creating a sonic blend that left radio programmers scratching their heads. Was it country? Rock? Something else entirely? The answer was yes to all 3. The magic behind My Maria wasn't just Stevenson's genre-defying approach, but also Larry Carlton's pioneering guitar work. Carlton's distinctive playing created a template that would eventually define the country rock sound, influencing generations of musicians who followed. This wasn't just another hit, it was a musical blueprint. Despite his impressive vocal range and songwriting talent, Stevenson struggled to maintain a consistent audience. His refusal to be pigeonholed into a single genre might have cost him commercially, but it allowed him to create something truly original. Number 5. The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia, Vicki Lawrence. While musical boundaries were being pushed across genres, one unlikely artist was busy transforming the murder ballad into mainstream gold. Ever wonder how a TV comedian ended up recording one of the most gripping narrative songs in music history? Well, the song that Cher turned down became the launching pad for Vicki Lawrence's surprising musical detour from her comedy career on The Carol Burnett Show. When Lawrence recorded The Night the Lights Went Out in Georgia in 1973, nobody expected the comedian to deliver such a dramatically compelling performance. The Southern Gothic tale unfolds like a mini-movie, drawing listeners into its web of betrayal and murder. What made the song revolutionary wasn't just its #1 chart position, but its sophisticated storytelling structure. The narrator's shocking revelation as the murderer in the final verse created a twist ending that left audiences stunned, a narrative complexity rarely attempted in pop music of the era. Number 6. Playground in My Mind, Clint Holmes. Not all musical innovations of 1973 were about sophisticated storytelling. Some were hiding in plain sight within a simple children's chorus. The innocent refrain, "My name is Michael, I got a nickel," might seem like just another catchy tune, but this seemingly simple element sparked an advertising revolution that continues to influence marketing today. Clint Holmes's Playground in My Mind climbed to number 2 on the Billboard charts and remained there for an impressive 23 weeks, earning gold certification. What made this song particularly memorable wasn't Holmes's vocal talent, though it was considerable, but the voice of 7-year-old Philip Vance, son of co-writer Paul Vance, who sang the chorus. Number 7. Also Sprach Zarathustra, Deodato. Just as children's voices changed advertising forever, a musical experiment in 1973 was blurring the lines between classical and contemporary in ways nobody saw coming. What happens when you take Richard Strauss's iconic Also Sprach Zarathustra? You know it as the 2001 A Space Odyssey theme. Add jazz heavyweights and infuse it with funk rhythms. You get the blueprint for electronic dance music decades before anyone knew what EDM even was. Brazilian jazz pianist Eumir Deodato wasn't just playing around when he reimagined this classical masterpiece. He assembled a dream team including jazz legends Ron Carter on bass and Billy Cobham on drums, instantly elevating what could have been written off as a musical gimmick. His funky interpretation reached number 2 on Billboard charts by fusing classical grandeur with jazz funk rhythms, something almost unheard of in 1973. Number 8. Take a Walk on the Wild Side, Lou Reed. Breaking musical boundaries was one thing, but in 1973, another artist was smuggling radical social commentary onto suburban radio stations. How did millions of American families find themselves humming along to detailed descriptions of transgender life in New York's underground scene without realizing it? Lou Reed's Walk on the Wild Side pulled off perhaps the greatest cultural Trojan horse in pop music history. This subversive masterpiece managed to slide past radio censors thanks to the collaborative genius of producer David Bowie and Mick Ronson. They wrapped Reed's provocative lyrics in deceptively accessible packaging, an irresistible bass line coupled with those iconic do-do-do backing vocals that made parents and kids alike sing along to stories they'd never fully comprehended. What made the song truly revolutionary wasn't just its number 16 Billboard position, but who it celebrated. Each verse introduced America to real people from Andy Warhol's Factory Scene, Holly Woodlawn, Candy Darling, Joe D'Alessandro, Jackie Curtis, and Joe Campbell, significant LGBTQ+ figures representing a thriving underground culture most listeners had never encountered before. Number 9. The Last Song, Edward Bear. While Lou Reed was shaking up America's airwaves, another song was quietly defining how heartbreak would look on screen for decades to come. Have you ever noticed that whenever a movie needs to show someone devastated by love, they're almost always sitting beside a silent telephone? That powerful visual shorthand likely originated with the forgotten Canadian band's biggest hit. In 1973, Edward Bear released The Last Song, a piano-driven ballad written by drummer Larry Evoy that reached number 3 on the Billboard charts. The song's portrayal of a man waiting for a lost love's call that never comes struck an emotional chord with listeners nationwide. Its straightforward lyrics combined with a soothing melody created something rare in pop music, a perfect emotional template that artists would reference for generations. The Last Song sold over 1 million copies and earned gold certification, yet Edward Bear never managed to replicate its success. The band struggled to create another track with the same emotional depth and commercial appeal that had resonated so powerfully with audiences. Number 10. Wildflower, Skylark. While the image of heartbreak by the telephone became iconic, another revolution was quietly taking place in the music world. In an era when female characters in songs were typically idealized beauties or heartbroken victims, a Canadian band called Skylark offered something remarkably different with their 1973 hit, Wildflower. Written by Doug Edwards and Dave Richardson in 1972, Wildflower painted a portrait of a woman who had faced the hardest times, yet remained strong through adversity. This wasn't just another love song. It was a celebration of female resilience that arrived years before feminist anthems would explicitly take up this message.